is Bob and welcome to the Homestead, y'all. Our garden's been in the ground now about 12 days. You see everything has came up great. I was editing the video of us planting everything and I realized I didn't do a very good job explaining how we garden, why we garden this way. You know, there's thousands of ways to garden and this is just one way. This way works for us. This is our main garden. We have 3 or 4 other garden spots around the homestead that we grow vegetables on, but this is the biggest and the main garden. And the reason we garden the way we do is we're regenerative gardeners. We consider ourselves, we try to use everything that we have right here on the homestead to grow a garden. We don't use any chemical fertilizers, we don't use any pesticides, no chemicals whatsoever. So we've tried to develop a way that we don't have to bring anything into the homestead. We use what we have here on our homestead to grow our garden. We use cover crops. Those are the biggest thing. We save seed from year to year. In fact, today I was grabbing seed over here, some purple vetch and some winter wheat seed. And I was harvesting it today so that way we can plant that back this fall. We let roughly a third of our garden rest every year, 25% to 35% every year. We rotate it around so that way the soil gets the rest, the cover crops get to grow. That way they'll put off seed, we can harvest the seed and use that seed the next fall. So that's why you see this little strip down through here. I had a lot of chicory, which I'm low on chicory seed. So I let a lot of chicory go to seed this year and I've been harvesting that seed. But what we do is we grow the cover crops all summer, or all winter long, all spring. And when we're ready to plant our garden, when we're ready to plant our rows, we come in here with a weed eater and we chop and drop it. We chop and drop every bit of it. And that's a lot of biomass that we're dropping down on the soil. And each year we drop it down, then we put our landscape fabric down, we put compost down the center of the landscape fabric. And that's building our soil from year to year. All the biomass that's under this landscape fabric throughout the summer breaks down. And then when we pull this up, we roll this landscape fabric up, we put it up for the year, then all that biomass has started to break down. Then we'll put compost down, we'll put leaves if it's fall time. We get as many leaves in here, we put grass clippings, any kind of organic material, plus we put more compost down. We plant our cover crops in and then the cycle starts all over again. What that does is from year to year we're building the soil up. The cover crops are sending organic matter 2 feet down into the ground in the form of roots. So they're driving through the compacted soil that was originally here and they're providing channels. When those roots rot, that provides channels for moisture to go. Once these plants get established, we don't have to water them the rest of the year. When they're small like this, I've watered a few of these beans. I noticed they were wilting, but we've had 90-degree weather. It's been hot, it's been dry. We got 1 rain the day after we planted the garden, and that's it. That's the only rain we've had. So it's been real hot and dry, so I did have to give them a little water, but once they get established, I won't water them the rest of the year. Last year I watered 1 time all summer long because the cover crops drive those roots 2 feet down into the ground. Then once we terminate them and they rot, they feed the microbes in the soil, they feed the fungi, and then that provides channels for the roots for their vegetables to go and for moisture to go, and it works like a sponge. It just holds that moisture in there. So that's another great thing about cover crops. Another thing, the cover crops, the legumes, they're putting nitrogen into the soil all winter long. So when we terminate them, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks from the time we terminate them and those roots release that nitrogen in, which is perfect because that's right in the middle of the growing season for all our vegetables. And you can actually tell when that nitrogen is released because these plants will shoot up just almost overnight. It seems like they just grow. You can almost watch them grow. So that's another reason. And then, like I said, all the biomass that we put down from year to year, all the organic matter, we're building our soil up layer by layer. Each year we keep building the soil, and I'm noticing the difference. Each year, we're 7 years, this is our 8th year into it. Whenever I come in here to terminate these cover crops, they're growing bigger and bigger every year. The stalks are getting bigger. It's getting harder for me to use just a regular weed eater with string to cut through them. Next year, I'm probably gonna have to switch to a nylon blades on my weed eater or something, because I went through a ton of string just trying to chop through these. Some of the chicory stalks, they were almost an inch around, which is just enormous. I'm going to show you. I'm going to turn the camera around, and we've got a spot right behind the camera that we're letting rest. You can see back here, you can see the winter wheat. You can see all the cover crops back here. That's about head high to me, around 6 foot tall. And then we have cover crops here, and then cover crops on that side against the barn. That side's resting this year. And I want to show you how much biomass is dropped down every year onto the garden, and then it breaks down, releases all the nutrients into the soil, and just helps the soil from year to year. The only thing we do put on it to help the plants grow is the compost. Everything else is in the soil. Now, in the wintertime, we do put wood stove ashes on. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description for a video on how to spread wood stove ashes. But we have videos. If you go to our regenerative gardening playlist, there's all kinds of videos on how we do this, what cover crops we use, what time of year we plant them. And all the information you need should be there. If not, just leave it in the comments below, and I'll get to it as quick as we can. And I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera around, show you this real quick, and then we'll get on to the video of us planting our garden. Okay, here's some of the cover crops I was talking about, how thick they grow. I mean, you can't even hardly walk through this stuff. It just grows so thick. Of course, this is chicory right here in the front. You can see winter wheat. There's all kinds of vetch. There's clover all in here. We grow a little over 20 different types of cover crops. The buckwheat's already done. The oats, I've already harvested oats also. But you can just see all the biomass. You know, when you chop all this down and just let it fall down and let it rot, let it compost throughout the summer, it just builds great soil from year to year. So that's how we do it. That's why we do it. It's 100% organic. We don't use any chemical fertilizers. We don't use any chemical sprays. Throughout the summer, I'm going to show you, I have videos on how I do our wildflowers, our sunflowers, and our different perennials that we're starting to plant to attract beneficial insects. So that way we don't have to spray anything on any of our food whatsoever. We can come out here and pick it straight out of the garden and eat it if we want to, because it hasn't had any sprays put on it. But this, like I said, it's just one way of doing it. One way that we found by just using what's on our property, making compost all year long, using animal manure to make compost. Now we're getting biofertilizer out of our methane digester. So we're using that also on the garden, and we use it on our fruit trees and all our berry bushes too. But if you have any questions on cover crops or anything that we do on this video, please leave it in the comments below. Hi, my name is Bob, and welcome to the Homestead, y'all. I'm fixing to do something that goes against everything I believe in no-till gardening. I'm fixing to till part of my garden. And the reason is, years ago when we decided this was going to be our garden, we put our geo down, which this is like a landscape fabric on steroids. It's super thick. You can see it all the way down through here. This was over 80 feet long, 12 feet wide, and it was new ground. And as the ground settled and packed over the years, there's humps all in it. There's a big hump right down here, another one here, another one there. And I want to level those humps out. Now I am going to take part of this geo. I'm going to take 35 feet of it, and I'm going to cut it off, and we're going to use it in the greenhouse for the floor. So this summer I'm going to plant cover crops and all this, and this is going to become part of our garden. But for now, what I want to do is I want to get these big humps out. Like I said, there's a huge hump there and there and there. So I'm going to take my rototiller and just make one pass down through here. I will be coming over into our good soil a little bit, but I think it'll be fine for this year. The bacteria, the earthworms and everything will move right back in there. But it just kills me to have to till this soil. Now, like I said, this was new ground, so this has never had cover crops on it, so I'm going to have to put cover crops on it a few years to help improve the soil before we can grow vegetables in it. But for now, I'm going to till this up and I'm going to level this out. finally time for us to start planting our summer garden. We're a little bit behind. It's the 30th of May right now. Normally we try to plant around the 2nd or 3rd week of May, but we've been real busy and we hadn't had time. We finally got everything ready, and today we're going to go ahead and plant most of it. We won't get all of it done today. We still have to prepare for our tomato plants over here. We'll try to get all our corn, all our beans, our squash, zucchini planted, our cucumbers planted. If we can get all that done today, then I'll be happy. But like I said, we're a little bit behind. And then on this row here, I had to till this, and that went against everything I've learned over the last 8 or 9 years on no-till. But I wanted to level this up. It's been bothering me for years and years. 12 years ago when we cleared this land, your stump holes, they settle. And we've had some real deep holes, so I finally got all that leveled out, took the tiller on the tractor, tilled it up, took the box blade, got everything level, so we're in a lot better shape now than we were. This row of beans, this is going to be dragon's tongue beans. It probably won't grow as well this year. I'm going to really throw the compost to it. Plus I have some liquid fertilizer that comes out of our biodigester. I'm going to use that on this row to see if I can help the plants grow for this year, and then we'll get cover crops in here for next year. And over the next 3 or 4 years, it'll help build the soil and we'll get healthy soil on this side. But for now, I need to get to work, need to get to planting, and we'll try to get as much of this done today as we can. Okay, it's finally time to start planting our summer garden. This first row right here, we're going to do dragon's tongue beans. These are beans we saved from last year for seed. You can see them there. We have plenty of them. And then we have our marker for the end of the row. Now, for those of you who haven't watched our gardening videos, this is from an old mini blind. You can get these anywhere. If you find one mini blind, you can cut these into 6-7 inch pieces, and you can get dozens and dozens of these markers for just using one mini blind. And then we use a red paint marker. I don't know if that'll focus on it, but there it is. We use a red paint marker to write what vegetable it is, or flowers. We use these in our flowers also. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and get some of these dragon tongue beans planted. We grew these for the first time last year, and these are just a wonderful bean. They cook up quick, 10-15 minutes and they're done. So I'm going to grow a whole lot more this year. Last year I think I only grew about 10 plants. So this year we're going to grow an entire row of them, and then we're going to count them up for this winter. Alright, it's time to plant our corn. This is Serendipity. This is the ear I saved from last year. I saved probably 8 or 10 ears to select seed from. This was a good looking ear. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the seed off of this one. We're going to plant it in this row here. And we plant 2 rows in one. You can see we have about a foot space that we have full of compost. And I'll stagger each row and plant them about every 6 inches and go back and thin them out if I have to. By planting 2 rows in one row, we can stagger them, and I don't have to have as much room for my corn. Now, corn's a heavy feeder, it and tomatoes both, but this is over into our good cover crop soil. This is good healthy soil, so it should do fine here. We're going to plant 2 rows today. We're going to wait a week. We'll plant 2 more rows right there. We'll wait another week and we'll plant 2 more rows over on the other side. And the reason we do that is so all our corn doesn't come in at one time. Plus the last 2 rows that we plant are the ones that I keep seed from. And all of our neighbors that are within the 5-mile radius, all their corn's already tousled, and I don't have to worry about cross-pollination. I can keep my varieties true. This is an heirloom variety of corn. So we keep our seed from year to year, so I want to keep it true. So by waiting 3 more weeks from now, there shouldn't be any other corn within a 5 to 10 mile radius that has tassels, so the pollen can't blow. Pollen travels a long ways by wind. I've read as far as 5 miles, and I've read as far as 10 miles. So by waiting and planting it last, I don't have to worry about the seeds being cross-pollinated. So I'm going to go ahead and break this off and start pulling some corn kernels off this. Now, on an average ear of corn, there's going to be 800 kernels. So that's more than enough for us to plant our garden. I'm gonna throw this over in them cover crops. So if you keep 5, 6, 7, 8 ears and then choose the best ones to grow the next year, that's more than enough corn seed to grow a garden, at least for 2 people. Now last year we put up over 800 ears of corn. That was more corn than what we needed. We gave corn away. We still have a lot of corn, but I'm still going to go ahead and plant some more. I'm going to try to plant to where we harvest about half that. Around 400 to 500 ears should do just fine. So I'm not going to plant as many rows of corn. Last year we planted 7 rows of corn and it produced, like I said, over 800 ears of corn. So I'm going to go ahead and pull some of this seed off here. You can see I've just took a small part and you can see how many kernels are already there. So we'll go ahead and get us 2 rows of this corn planted. Now this is a great sweet corn. It holds its flavor all winter long. So I'd highly recommend it. Since we got our serendipity corn in, we're going to plant a half a row of Blue Lake beans and a half a row of Kentucky Wonder beans. Now both of these are a great bush bean. We like them for different things, but I'm going to plant a half a row of each. I have my labels here. We'll do the Blue Lake first, and then we'll do the Kentucky Wonders. And there again, these are seeds that we saved from last year. We just shell them out and dry them and then store them in paper bags. That's the seeds there. So we'll go ahead and we'll get all these planted. This next row right here, it's going to be kidney beans. Kidney beans are a very versatile bean. Of course, you can use them in chili, you can use them in soups. So we're going to grow a whole row of them this year. I have a whole bunch here. I have several pounds of kidney beans that I saved the seed from. You can see they're a beautiful bean, I think they are. So we're going to go ahead and plant a row of these. I have my row marker here. So I'm going to go ahead and get planted on these kidney beans. Alright, it's time to plant some okra. I'm going to plant Clemson spineless in this row, or at least this half of the row. We're going to plant something else in the other half, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes. Our okra seeds, I've had them soaking in water for several hours now. Okra seeds are tough. They have a thick hull on them, and they seem to germinate better when I soak them in water for a little while. I can see some of these holes are already starting to split. So hopefully they'll germinate pretty quick. So that's why I like to soak my okra seeds. I've soaked bean seeds before and I've had mixed results with that. I've had better germination rates just planting the beans directly in the soil. So that's why I didn't soak any of my bean seeds. But the okra seeds, I've had better results by soaking them for several hours and sometimes even overnight. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and plant these Clemson spineless. These are our favorite okra. They cook up well if you're doing fried okra. And Christy loves to pickle these. Our daughters and granddaughters love pickled okra. So we'll pickle a bunch of this summer, and we'll probably grow another type okra, a Yuma Red, but I'm not going to plant it today in this row. I'm going to wait and plant it over here. That way I can keep these okra seeds, keep these okras pure. They're heirloom. This is an heirloom variety, so as long as I don't have any okra plants close to it, it should keep them true to their parent plant. So I'm gonna get started planting. So in this other half of this row that we planted our okra in, I'm gonna plant a different type of corn. It's called Painted Mountain. See if it can, from Baker Creek. I've never grown this corn before. It's kind of a novelty corn, I guess. It's all different colors. I figured it'd be neat to grow and see how it tastes. If it tastes good, then I'll probably save some seeds and grow it next year. But I'm not worried about this cross-pollinating with our sweet corn, because the sweet corn that I'm going to keep the seeds from, I'm not going to plant until 2 weeks from now. So this corn will be tasseled. By the time that one gets ready to tassel, there won't be any pollen left on this corn to cross with our sweet corn. So we can still keep our sweet corn true to the heirloom variety. So let's paint some Painted Mountain. Okay, it's time to plant squash and zucchini. You can see here I have zucchini #1 and squash #1, so I have my labels that match them. The #1 stands for the first squash and first zucchini that I kept seeds off of. I can go back and look in my records, see which ones I bred. So these are my best seeds that we saved. These were the biggest fruit and the plants that were the biggest and did the best. So we're going to go ahead and plant them. We'll plant zucchini in the first row and squash in the second row. Okay, it's time to plant our cucumber plants. We plant Beta Alpha cucumbers. Last year was the first year we grew these cucumbers, and they just impressed Christy and I. They're just a great cucumber to grow. They're heirloom cucumber. You pick them at about 8 inches or so long, and they're thin skinned, they're burpless. They grow nice and straight, so they're great for pickling. They're just an all-around great cucumber. I started some of these from seed that I'm going to plant on this front trellis. On the back trellis, I'm going to go ahead and plant just the seeds in the ground. But what we do here is I'll take my weed eater and weed eat down all the cover crops. You can see the cover crops behind us. That part of the garden is resting this year. We try to let 25 to 30% of our garden rest every year and rotate it around, so that way the soil has time to recuperate and build the soil for an entire year. Really, it's about 1.5 years before we plant it in it again. But what we do is we weed eat all the cover crops down. This is a piece of paper. This is from one of our feed sacks. Our feed sacks are paper sacks, and they have 3 layers in them. And I take the inside layer, which is just this brown paper, and I lay it down. So we've laid it down all the way across these cattle panel trellises. And then we put compost on top of it. And so that's what we're going to plant our plants into. And then we'll trellis them up this, and we'll just be able to come out here and just pick cucumbers right off the trellis throughout the summer. It works great. These cattle panel trellises, I just can't say enough about them. They do a great job. And we use hose clamps to hose clamp them to the T-posts. You can see right there's a hose clamp, so it holds it good and tight. I think next year what I might do is raise these up about 6 inches or so and give us a little more headroom. When you measure it from the ground to the center, you have 6.5 feet. So if I raise it up about 6 inches on each side, then that'll give us a little bit more room, give us about 6 inches of room to walk under it. But they work great, so if you're looking for a good trellis system, I highly recommend a 16-foot cattle panel. Put them 5.5 feet apart and just bend your cattle panel over, and then use regular automotive hose clamps to clamp it. But for now, I need to go ahead and get these cucumbers planted, and after we get those planted, then we're going to be planting some tomato plants. Take my little hand shovel and just get down to the good dirt. That's all I want to do, is get down to the healthy soil. Once I break the surface on that healthy soil, then I'm good. Just take a tomato plant, put him in there, just like that. And we'll come over a couple feet. We'll do another one. There again, I just want to break that healthy soil. Plant, put him in there. Just like that. We'll go ahead and we'll finish it all the way down through here, then we'll give it a good watering. And then as they grow, we'll just weave them in to the fence. I'm gonna go ahead and do a time lapse on the rest of this so you don't have to sit through it. Give you a little better close up. How we do it, just put a hole in the compost, break the healthy soil, and take our tomato plant, push him down in there. Try my K Brands garden auger to plant these tomato plants. See how well it does. I'm thinking it'll do just the trick. Dust down in that good soil. Yeah, it's going to work well. Yeah, that's working great. I'll time lapse the rest of this so you don't have to sit and watch me dig holes for tomatoes. That worked great. This is that K Brands auger. I did a review on this back a few months ago. This is the smaller one, the 1.5 inch, roughly 1.5 inch. It did a great job for what I'm needing to do to plant these small tomato plants. I just want to break the surface of the healthy soil. I'm actually planting the tomato plant in the compost and right on top of the healthy soil. So that's all I'm using this for, and that didn't take but just a couple minutes. I did 30 holes right there in probably 2 minutes time, maybe 3 minutes time. It didn't take long at all. So these things just keep on impressing me. Now the bigger one, I do have a few issues with it. I have used it here in the garden where we've had cover crops, and it does real well because there's roots for the auger to get a hold of. But when I tried it out in the orchard where we haven't grown cover crops as long, back in the winter time, it didn't do a great job. It only went down a few inches, but you can find that video. I'll put the link in the description below, just in case you want to watch it, in case you're interested in a garden auger. But this smaller auger, I've used it a whole lot. I've used it to plant garlic. It just zips through to plant garlic bulbs or cloves, no problem. If you don't have one of these, I would definitely recommend getting one. The only thing, I am going to contact them again, and I would like to have a longer one. I'd like to have one that I could stand up right here and drill my holes to where I don't have to be bent over like this. It puts strain on my lower back. And now that I'm getting older, I'm closer to 60 than I am 50 now. So bending over hurts my back after doing it all day long. So I'd like to have a long. First tomato is a Serret Rolaz. Okay, little kitty, go. These seeds were given to us by a friend of ours, Esther Jackson. She loves this tomato. It's a yellow tomato with purple on it. One of the things she said she really liked about it, it was a meaty tomato, and if it got a bug bite or got something wrong with it, that it would heal itself over, so you didn't lose as many tomatoes. So I'm anxious to grow this. So this first half of this row is the Serret Rolaz. I looked them up, and they're supposed to be a great heirloom tomato, so I'm excited to grow these this year. Actually, I'm growing 2 of them in our monster tomato grow along with some sweet 100s, just because I'm excited to grow them, and I think they're going to be a great tomato. So that's the Serret Rolaz. Now we're going to go down to this next half down here, and I'll show you what kind of tomatoes we have down there. Half of this first tomato row is a tomato. I got the seeds from one of our seed swaps this year. There's a gentleman at the seed swap. We do a seed swap in March here in our local town. And we have a seed swapping page on Facebook also, to where we can swap seeds with people. And I got these from him, and he said he got them from his uncle in Italy. His uncle lives in Italy, and the name of the tomato, or I thought the name of the tomato, was Pomodoro. It's a red pear tomato. And he said it's similar to paste tomato or Roma tomato here. And I looked it up, and Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. So I don't know what kind we're going to get. I don't know what the name of these are. They're supposed to be, like I said, he said it was a red pear tomato. So we'll see. Hopefully it's a good tomato. But if it's from Italy, it has to be a good tomato. So that's what these 16 plants are. The first 16 were the Sart Rolas, and then these are, well, I'm just going to call them red pear tomatoes. We'll go over to this other row and that we just planted today, and I'll show you the other two types of tomatoes we're growing. Okay, these first 16 plants here on this half of the row are called a midnight snack. Now these are a cherry type tomato, but they're similar to the Cherokee purples. They're a darker color. We got these seeds from a couple up in Kentucky, and we stopped at their yard sale. Christy and I was out yard sailing, and they had a beautiful garden, so we went around back. It was in October, so their garden was just finishing up. And they had about 4 of these tomatoes still left on their plants, and they were kind enough to give them to us. So Christy and I took these 4 little tomatoes, and we saved the seeds from them. And that was 3 years ago, and I haven't had a chance to start these seeds, and so I started them this April, at the beginning of April. And I couldn't believe it, but every seed we planted came up. So we were tickled with that, so we're excited to get to grow these. They say they're a delicious tomato, so we're going to grow them this year, and we're going to see how they do. These last 16 plants are the only hybrids that we grow, and the only reason I'm growing them this year is because I found these seeds. They're 4 or 5 years old. I found them in my seed stash, and I thought, well, I need to go ahead and see if they're going to germinate. I didn't think they would germinate. I had a 95% germination rate on these things. And they were just stored in a tub in my shop. And my shop is insulated, but it's not conditioned, so it doesn't have air conditioning and doesn't have heat. And they did great. Just like the midnight snacks, these tomato seeds, they've done wonderful, their germination rates. So it goes to show you that just because you have some older seeds, that they still could have good germination rates. Now, I know on the corn and the beans, especially beans, the older the seed is, the germination rates drop drastically. But on the tomatoes, it doesn't seem to bother them a whole lot. So anyhow, these are Jet Stars. They are a hybrid tomato, but they're a great cannon tomato. That's the reason I'm going to go ahead and grow them this year. I can't keep the seeds from them. Well, I could keep the seeds, but I don't know what they would produce, and I might do it just to see what kind of tomato they produce. It'll be one of the parents from the hybrid. So the Jet Star, we have 16 plants of those. Those were the last of my seeds from the Jet Star, and I'm going to go ahead and grow them this year. You can see our little labels. Now these are white mini blinds. Just find you an old set of mini blinds, cut them into 5 or 6 inch pieces, get you a paint marker, and they'll last for years and years. So that's all the tomatoes.